I now call the regular meeting to order for Monday, January 8th, 2024. Before we get going, we'd like to acknowledge that this council meeting has been held on the homeland of the Tanaka people. I'd like to welcome, we've got some visitors in the gallery tonight. Welcome to the meeting. And we have Councillor Ray, who is zooming in remotely tonight. So welcome, Lynette. Moving on to business. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting of Monday, January 8th, 2024? Mover, please. Councillor Papa, Councillor Bissett, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the following minutes, please? Minutes of the public hearing of Monday, December 11th, 2023. Minutes of the regular meeting of Monday, December 11th, 2023. Minutes of the special meeting of Wednesday, December 13th, 2023. Minutes of the special meeting of Monday, December 18th, 2023. And minutes of the special meeting of Friday, December 22nd, 2023. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. In favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. First up tonight, we have a delegation. We have a presentation from Al Dick from the Sunrise Rotary Club regarding the installation of an electric kiosk. Welcome, Al, and the floor is all yours. Yep, wherever you're comfortable there.
Thank you, Wayne. And we have a PowerPoint presentation. Is it on the big screen or?
Yeah, it'll appear on the screen.
Oh, okay, good. So I'll just wait for a moment then.
Yeah.
Yep. So while we're waiting for the PowerPoint to come up, thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Price, and Councillors Popoff, Bissett, Peabody, and Stetsky, and Ray. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Our Rotary Club, Sunrise Rotary, is one of 2 Rotary clubs here in Cranbrook and one of 6 clubs in the area in the East Kootenays. The oldest club in the area is a tie between the Cranbrook Rotary Club and the Fernie Club, which have had representation and service to their communities for over 100 years. A lot of people don't know that, but Rotary has a long and deep history within our area, and Rotary as well has a long history in North America and indeed the world, with thousands and thousands of members in every country in the world. There's the PowerPoint presentation, and we're almost ready.
Yeah, they had it and they took it away from you.
Yeah. There we are.
There we go. Oh, there we are.
Oh, yes. The old Zoom call.
Bottom left. There we go.
Okay. So I'll just ask you to move to the next slide when I tell you to. Thank you, sir. So the town crier is an electronic kiosk, and this technology exists all over the world. Well, my wife and I and friends of ours have traveled fairly extensively over the last several years, and this is a kiosk of what it could look like, and this is from Bellagio, Italy. So, and the reason we share this with you is to show that this is not a unique thing. This goes all over the world and in all kinds of places, not just in shopping malls where you use it to find where the next store is. Go to the next slide, please. So this technology is really interactive. So our friends in Kimberley have this this type of thing, and I was trying to describe this earlier to a friend of ours, and And this kiosk has been quite effectively used in Kimberley for the last couple of years. Next slide, please, sir. Our proposal is for this kiosk it looks something like this. And we're thinking that a good place to put it would be in the picnic area right beside City Hall. That is one idea that we have. We did think about putting it across the street near the Rotary Arch, but our club's thinking is that it might be better in the picnic area because of proximity to traffic flow and also proximity to power and a sense of just the traffic pattern seemed to be quite good in that area. Next slide, please. So, as I said before, Cranbrook and Rotary, we've had over 100 years of collegial interaction, both between the Noon Club and our Sunrise Club. Now, the Sunrise Club, we meet every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. And so we're not, that sign represents the Noon Club. And if we click to the next slide, please. That also is something that the Noon Club put together in Idlewild Park. Next slide, sir. And this is what the Sunrise Club put together back in the late 90s. And almost everybody who's been to Moyer Park knows exactly what that is. Next slide, please. And the Noon Club has put that in place as well. A lot of people don't know about these things, or they certainly don't come to mind. We know about the big Rotary sign out front at the park, but the depth and service of Rotary in our community is really quite something. Next slide, please. Our club put that one together, and that's probably helps to we try to help with the beautification of Cranbrook on the south end of when come and go. And thanks to the city for helping with the putting that waterfall display in place. I'm sharing all this with you is just to remind everyone that Rotary has been around for a long time and has invested very, very heavily over the years to the tune of millions of dollars when you add all these things up. And so our thought around the signage here is to, albeit it's a rather small investment compared to some of these other things. Next slide, please. But the purpose of the town crier is to announce to everybody, to everyone who's either a citizen of Cranbrook or a visitor to Cranbrook of what is going on. Now, it's not particularly easy to hire an individual to go out every day and ring a bell and say, "Hear ye, hear ye." But technology now allows us to do these things. So it's creates a free platform. It's designed to create a free platform for nonprofit organizations. And we want to celebrate and recognize local citizens and organizations of their accomplishments. Next slide. So when was this celebration and who do you recognize? Picture was taken, put into a local newspaper and was shown once. The purpose of the town crier would be to loop this in a constant presentation for as long as we wanted to run it. Next slide, please. This young lady won a global award from the College of the Rockies. Her picture as well her picture and name was was posted once and she got the lovely recognition. But 2 weeks later, who remembers? Next slide. So our club wants to partner with the city and with tourism, Cranbrook Tourism, in this manner, where it's not to have any commercial usage. So there's no advertising, no Safeway advertising or political messaging or any religious messaging. It is strictly for what's going on and recognizing the great people of Cranbrook. Next slide, please. So how do we run it? So it becomes a partnership with Cranbrook Tourism and the city of Cranbrook. We're suggesting that Cranbrook Tourism oversees the information input via built-in software technology, that is the photos and the text. City of Cranbrook will have direct access for important city announcements, such as pay your taxes on time. And protocols will have to be established. Next slide, please. Back one, thanks. So how is this paid for? It'll be a collaboration between the Sunrise Rotary and the city of Cranbrook. Sunrise Rotary will pay for the hardware, and city of Cranbrook will install the kiosk, and then we'll also work with the Cranbrook Tourism in terms of the operation. Next slide. The quote that we got from Selkirk Signs back in June was for around $17,000 before installation. Gina McDonald from Selkirk Signs has already told us that we're probably going to see at least a 5% increase if it's approved. And our guesstimate for installation will be in the neighborhood of $5,000. So plus or minus $21,000, $22,000, I think, all in, is our guesstimate right now. Next slide. So we're suggesting that the electronic town crier is probably not as handsome as this gentleman, but probably a lot more effective. So thank you for your time. Any questions?
Good. Thank you very much, El. I will start off with questions or comments at that end of the table with Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation and for all the great things that Rotary has done for Cranbrook over the years. The issue is always, of course, updating and making sure the information is current. You mentioned Cranbrook Tourism. So have they agreed to sort of take on managing the information?
Yeah, we've had conversations with the management there, and they have agreed to that.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Al, two quick questions for you. First, when deciding on the location, have you been working with city staff to help determine the best spot for the kiosk and whether or not there's power?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then once it's installed, if there's, let's say, any vandalism to the kiosk, is that designed so it's easily repairable?
Yes, if you're familiar at all with the kiosk at the Platzel, it's hard to make a mess of it unless like if you use a color marker or something. The shine on it is so slippery that it's hard to write on.
Okay.
If somebody wants to really go crazy and do something like with a can of paint, we have to always run that type of risk. But it is a hard metallic surface with a very shiny finish.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bissett.
Will it run all night long?
It can.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's good that it's in a location where it's probably not going to bother. Well, there are residents actually across the street. I guess it depends on the angle that it's
That's,
placed at.
that's correct. And there is a way to increase the lighting and decrease it. So there is a rheostat type of a system to manage that.
So we could reduce the lighting at night possibly?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Popoff?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Great work, Al. On you and Glenn Dobie are the instrumental ones working on this so far. And you also have been in contact already with some of city staff about locations, i.e. right down in front of us, and power sources and those sort of things. I think through staff, we've also have been talking to our Chris Zettel and others on possible communication partnerships as well. So that it's a good package between, well, tourism as the lead, city, Chamber of Commerce, other places that can then put that input following the right protocols for community announcements, community events, those sort of things. So I think there's already been some good preliminary work on that. And with respect, I think to illumination, we'll just create some sort of a plan with the city about when it would be left on and when it would be turned off, those sort of things. So I think it's really something good. I think we could also, going forward with this, I think there's some, so this is my question, I think we can go forward, there's also some capabilities to actually have the community events and announcements actually on your phone as an app, as well as here, as well as on our display signage at Western Financial Place on the corner there. So I think there's more upscale potential with this as the start. So I think that's correct.
That's correct.
Some good opportunities. And I think a void that we really don't have in our community right now. How do we stay connected with what's going on? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Popoff. Councillor Ray, do you have a comment or a question? No. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic project going forward. Quick question then. It's, I think, incidental. Energy consumption. Obviously, the city will more than likely be picking up the bill on that one, but I'm just curious, so do they have a bit of an idea on the energy consumption per month on something like that?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that, but it is fully digitized.
No, so, yeah. So-
It'll run probably as much as your television.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Probably very incidental. Very good. Nothing further. I'd like to thank you very much, Al, and we're looking forward to, I'm fairly sure we'll be partnering up on this thing in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Moving into new business, we have one report from staff tonight. It's coming to Finance Department regarding the request from the Spirit of the Rocky Society. I'll ask CFO Osborne to speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've received a request from the Spirit of the Rocky Society to act as a qualified donee on an application that they plan to make to a grant through the Community Foundation. So a qualified donee is
Yeah, and I see Councillor Ray has her hand up here. Councillor Ray?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I will be recusing myself from this item because of my paid work with the Community Foundation of the Kootenay Rockies. So I will just exit the meeting, and if someone could text me when this item is done, then I will rejoin.
Thank you very much for advising us of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lynette, we
See you
can just
shortly.
move you to the lobby if you want, and I can let you back in 5 minutes.
Oh, sounds great. Thank you.
Are we good, Ross? Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Charlotte?
So the City of Cranbrook has received a request from the Spirit of the Rocky Society to act as a qualified donee on a grant application they wish to submit to the Community Foundation. The Community Foundation requires that applications be from qualified donees or charitably registered organizations. The City of Cranbrook is a qualified donee. So the intent is that the application, that the city of Cranbrook would act as the qualified donee for the Spirit of the Rockies. We've had a ruling on this scenario in the past from Revenue Canada. We need to be very protective of our status as a charity. One of the top reason for charitable organizations to have their status revoked is that they pass through gifts to unqualified donees, so not a charitable organization. And in the opinion that we received from Revenue Canada, there were two criteria laid out for a scenario such as this. One being that the city of Cranbrook would retain control over how the funds are spent, which of course we wouldn't. And then the other item to consider is whether or not there is an established relationship between the non-qualified donee and the city of Cranbrook, which in this case there is. Staff's recommendation is that council approve the request. We feel that the risk is low because we do have this established relationship with the Spirit of the Rockies. Now, having said that, we receive requests like this fairly frequently, and if council approves this, this should not be seen as a blanket approach for all future types of requests like this. The one thing that was also pointed out in the opinion letter from Revenue Canada was that in a case where it is seen as where the qualified donee, such as the city of Cranbrook, is seen as a conduit for funds from something like the foundation through to someone who is not a qualified donee, such as another non-registered charity, which the Spirit of the Rockies is not appropriate. So we do have to be very, very careful and very considerate when we evaluate whether or not to approve these types of requests. On December, I think it was the December 19th, a new guidance came out from Revenue Canada addressing this very issue, because this is a big issue, and it's frequently presented in a very similar fashion to this. And so this new guidance is supposed to provide new avenues for the relationship between a qualified donee, such as the foundation, and a non-qualified donee, such as the Spirit of the Rockies Society. So it is hoped that once this guidance is better understood, an organization like the City of Cranbrook can pull back and not participate in that relationship and leave the relationship between, in this case, the foundation and the society. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I'll get a motion up and then we can have a discussion. Can I get a motion that council approve the request from the Spirit of the Rockies Society that the city be the qualified donee on the Society's application to the 2024 Community Foundation of the Rockies Grant Program? Over, please, Councillor Popov, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion, Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Two questions. So they've been around for 58 years, and this change is required because of new rules from CRA?
Mayor, through to Councillor Stetsky. No. The foundation is a registered charity, and under CRA rules, the registered charity can only gift to another registered charity. The society is not a registered charity, so the foundation on its website to all applicants similar to the society suggests to them that they look for a partner, such as the City of Cranbrook, another qualified donee, to act as the qualified donee on their application. So I don't know if the Spirit of the Rockies Society or its predecessor, the Sam Steele Society, had not applied for funding from the foundation in the past. I don't know. Or if they had created a partnership arrangement, as they're seeking from us, with another charity. I don't know.
Okay. Certainly.
So when I was reading that, I was curious, would this create a conflict of interest if the city was contributing funds to the society and we're also accepting the donations?
Um,
Like, would it affect our ability to contribute
uh,
to the society?
Mayor, through to Wayne Stetsky or Councillor Stetsky. I don't know specifically. I suspect not, since the recommendation to approach the city came from the foundation.
Further? And Charlotte, it's my understanding that we've had these requests in the past. There's a little bit of past history here, and that we have done something like this in the past, but we've also refused a number of organizations that approach us based on the CRA ruling. So we use that basically as our decision-making measure, correct?
Mayor, that's correct. So the ruling that I'm referring to was when we had received a request from the Grand Fondo. And that request was denied because there is no A, we have no say over where the money goes, and B, there was no established relationship with the Fondo. So the request was denied. You know, that we do have other situations where we apply on behalf of, but those are not submitted, those requests are not submitted in the form of asking that the city act as a qualified donee. So this is very specific. This is our charitable status that's required in this case in order for the society to make the application. And just for I didn't receive the information in time before I had to submit the report, but the grant that they're going to be requesting is $2,000.
Thank you, Charlotte. Any further? Motion on the floor, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. We'll just give a moment here for Councillor Ray to zoom back in. Welcome back, Lynette. Okay, moving on to administrative updates. We have 3 admin updates tonight. The first is from the Corporate Service Department regarding the Recreation and Culture Service Review. Tina, you're going to speak to this? Okay, thank you. You have the floor.
We're just giving you an update that the consultant that will be carrying out the Recreation and Culture Service Review is Expedition Management Consulting. We will be looking to gain deeper understanding of the services that are being provided by the city, and will seek input from community, staff, and council on our service delivery, programming, and organizational structure. The project will also provide an analysis on cost recovery rates, a review of fees and charges, and external partnerships. The community and staff engagement will be commencing in February, and the final report will provide the desired future state and how to get there is expected to be completed in June.
Thank you, Tina. Questions, comments, Council? Nope. Very good. Thanks so much. What do we got here? The next update is from Human Resources Department regarding their accessibility and DEI program. And Daba and Amanda, along with the consultant, I see that's streaming in, will be providing a brief presentation to Council. Floor is yours, Andy and Amanda.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are today presenting the conclusion of a project that you assigned staff to work on over the past 12 months. With myself and Amanda, we requested Andrea, our consultant from Inclusion Incorporated, to take us through the presentation today. We will be available to answer questions and provide more information as we progress along. So I'll invite Andrea online to take us through our presentation this evening.
Super. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting us to be part of tonight. I hope that the presentation is now viewable on your screen. I just want to check before I begin.
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, folks. As Andy spoke, my name is Andrea Carey. I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and elle, and I'm zooming in today from Coast Salish Territories in Victoria, British Columbia, and here to share the results of our Accessibility and Inclusion Framework project that we've been undertaking with the City of Cranbrook over the last 6 months. I want to acknowledge the territories that you're all on today, which are the territories I had the great fortune to grow up as an uninvited settler on, those of the Ktunaxa peoples, and was just there over the holidays and continue to be so grateful for the beautiful Rocky Mountains and surrounding territories. So we've undertaken this work with the city, as I said, over the last 6 months, and this work was undertaken to comply with the Accessibility Act in British Columbia, which is new legislation that all municipalities, as well as many others, are required to comply with. It was also to develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion goal and action plan to help make the city a more inclusive employer, and to establish a committee that would be responsible for doing the accessibility and diversity, equity, and inclusion work as you go forward, and also to look at how it develops a barrier-free accessibility framework for the city to foster active living and participation for people with disabilities. This work was developed, as I said, over the last 6 months with us, but really going back to 2021 when the Accessible British Columbia Act mandated that all BC municipalities work towards being more accessible organizations. And then in July 2022, your municipal council approved a policy to make this a foundation around accessibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. And following that, in May 2023, you engaged us to work with you to create an accessibility and diversity, equity, and inclusion project to fulfill that legislated requirement, in which we've been undertaking with your team over this last few months. And we now have a strategic framework which will support your team to move forward as to be an accessible and inclusive employer and more of an accessible and inclusive community as well. And we've completed this project in December 2023, and we're going to share more about it as we go through this presentation. In order to create this, we underwent a fairly extensive audit process with both internal and external engagements. And that led us to an audit report, which has learnings and recommendations, which we have then built to create this, built out to create the framework, and a number of actions as well. So we have an audit report, we've done the framework development, which you'll see at a high level tonight. We have an action plan that supports how to deliver on that framework. And then we have co-created with your team an interim accessibility committee, which both helped contribute to this work as we went through, and will continue to help inform the work in its implementation phase as you move into that in this next year and beyond. And then we've also supported a number of communication tools to help you share the way forward as well, and look at how you can have accountability and feedback mechanisms across the community. So we wanted to share a couple of little data highlights from some of our learnings. So these next couple of slides are from our internal survey, which we did with your employees and city council and key committees back in the late spring, early summer. And so this was from the belonging metric, which looked at some of the demographics of who is working across the city of Cranbrook. And what we learned from that was that you have a racial makeup across the city that is predominantly white. Over 86% is white. And then you have a little bit of diversity across East Asian populations, Indigenous peoples, and Middle Eastern peoples. We did have some folks that either preferred not to say what their racial identity was, or that were away or unavailable to complete the survey. We also had a further breakdown of folks identifying which Indigenous backgrounds that they came from, but given that it was a small number, we didn't break that down any further. We also looked at the age demographics across your employee groups, and saw that you have a majority of your employee base that's in the 36 to 54-year-old age category, with about 50% of your employee base being in that age category. We asked about gender identities as well, and saw that about 54% of your workforce identifies as being men. And then we had a few folks identifying as gender fluid or agender. So some pieces for us to pay attention to as you go forward, as we're likely to see that those gender identities increase as you move forward. And across the LGBTQI2S communities, we saw that about 87% did not identify as part of those communities, but we had a few folks that were identifying there as well, about 10% that were. And then persons with disabilities, again, pretty low numbers identifying as having a disability, but across the whole survey, we had 5 folks that identified with that, and they shared with us what some of those disabilities are. So some great highlights in terms of starting to understand who your employee population is, and lots of data as well to dive into in terms of what those employees' experiences are across the organization. We also did an external survey, and so two highlight slides from that. We asked people about their feelings of inclusion and community as being part of the Cranbrook community. And again, this was an external questionnaire that went out in early summer. And we saw that 50% agreed that they felt included and part of the community, and 9% were neutral, and then 40% disagreed that they felt part of the community. So again, lots of opportunities there to think about how this work can really support people feeling like more of the Cranbrook community and like they belong there. We also saw that there's some limiting attitudes at play, and this is particularly important on this question around thinking about the accessibility plan and supporting folks with disabilities, because we saw that 30% of folks that answered this survey said that they felt that they had experienced negative attitudes related to their disability. So an opportunity to think about awareness and education to help support the Cranbrook community to understand how to be more supportive of disabilities. So as we undertook this work, those were just a couple highlight slides. We have lots of data that you can dig into as we go forward, but we really use that data to help inform your approach as you move forward. And so what we've achieved over this time together is the establishment of an accessibility and inclusion framework. We're going to dive into that a little bit deeper in a couple minutes. Through that, we also surfaced accessibility pillars and goals, and established a preliminary accessibility feedback system. So within the accessibility and inclusion framework, there's a couple of key pieces to pay attention to here. It's really talking about how the city has fulfilled that legislative requirement, as well as being part of the East Kootenay Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee, which you've now agreed to sit on and be part of that work as well. It's talking about how the city has partnered with the East Kootenay Regional District and other organizations, and it's looking at how there will be an internal accessibility action committee that will continue to move this work forward through implementation. We established a commitment statement around this work as part of that framework, which states that the City of Cranbrook will work to create a supportive environment that is responsive, values transparency, celebrates diversity, and intentionally creates an inclusive community where each person can meaningfully participate and feel like they belong. Under that commitment, we have 3 pillars and a series of goals. The pillars are accountable leadership and belonging, which really talks about how you can facilitate belonging across the community and how you're going to hold yourself to being accountable as you move forward, and what leadership is required in order to move you forward on that journey. The second pillar is around connecting and supporting communities, and looks at who what identity groups need additional supports across the community, and where you can play a key role in helping support and facilitate community through existing events, through existing practices, and building those practices to be more inclusive. And the third pillar is accessible by design, looking across different facets of accessibility in your community and really focusing on how you can create more accessible practices, places, and opportunities. So those three pillars dive in a little bit more into some high-level goals and action areas, which we would encourage you to dig into, but just really thinking about how we're going to bring those to life with you. So those goals support that, and then there's a whole series of actions to further support it from there. So at a high level, this accountable leadership and belonging is that first pillar. The second pillar is around connecting and supporting communities and really thinking about those programs and services to bring different community groups together and support folks that have been underserved in your community. And the third pillar is around accessible by design, looking at primarily disability accessibility, but also thinking about other aspects of accessibility and thinking about how your communications land and programs and services that can help support each person to meaningfully participate across the city of Cranbrook. The other area we spoke to you about is that we've created a preliminary accessibility feedback system, and that mechanism is an opportunity for folks to give feedback to the city of Cranbrook on their experiences and to continue to ensure that you're learning and developing this action plan and next phase of work as you implement as well. So you're getting that continuous feedback, but also thinking about as people are encountering a system or a challenge in their community, they have a place to share that, and that the city will then support the community through actioning that. So some next steps in 2024, you're really going to focus on the milestones of that internal accessibility action committee to develop a priority list of actions that we've already got a draft for, but they're going to really work through that and prioritize those. They will also look at the membership of their committee and invite additional participation if needed to ensure there's a diversity of contributions. They will share the accessibility inclusion framework with the public. You're going to continue to engage and seek community feedback on the action plan and additional initiatives. And you're going to do an annual review and updates back to council and members of the public. So we greatly appreciate all of the support from council and from the members of the public that have contributed, as well as the staff as we've gone through this process. To give you just a little visual to wrap us up today, that accessibility plan phases, we had the establishment of the accessibility committee in the terms of reference, which is complete, the development of the accessibility inclusion framework, which was completed in December. You've got the accessibility action goals, which are starting this month and will be prioritized and rolled out, and then an annual review next December and a 3-year evaluation in December 2026. And just to wrap up with an acknowledgement of the incredible contributions of the city staff team with Nidaba, Amanda, Bradley, Tristan, Ursula, and Chris, who have been part of this working group as we've gone through this work and really gave unbelievable input and support. And then to the CEO, Mark, and the senior leadership team, and then to the Mayor and Council for your support and endorsement of this work. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to take questions or turn it back to Nidaba and Amanda.
Thank you, Andrea. Any questions, comments, Council? Councillor Stetsky, then Councillor Popov.
And thank you. To implement some of, particularly the physical changes, like making sidewalks accessible around Cranbrook that currently aren't accessible to wheelchairs, takes money, but I can't remember from a budget perspective whether we put some funding in place to implement some of the actions.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky, through Mayor Price. The strategy and our hope is that when we have the action plan, there is funding that's available through the grants in the province. So we're likely to be applying for those grants and maybe particularly fund all we have to really do is make sure our action plan is in place and our priorities are clear then we can approach the province for help.
Thank you. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So 2 questions. In your first pillar, accountable leadership and belonging, one of the bullets says develop recruitment and hiring processes through DEI lenses. So whether it's recruitment or hiring for union or non-union, how does the DEI lens fit into what I hope we're still doing, which is hiring based on merit?
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, do you want to start with that or do you want me to?
You can go ahead, Andrea.
Okay. Yes, we are definitely still encouraging you to hire based on skill. But we also want you to think about what are some of the aspects of who you're hiring and ensuring that you think about more diverse talent pools, that you're advertising maybe in places you haven't advertised before, that you're working with local community groups such as ACAM and the College of the Rockies, and looking at how you're building pipeline programs to help support encouraging a more diverse workforce as you go forward through that recruitment lens. And then when we look at retention, thinking about what are some of the trainings that might be needed to support people having a positive experience once they're into a workplace environment. What are some of the, I'm going to say, social supports that might be needed to consider as you work with more diverse populations. And we have lots of examples of organizations that we work with that are doing really innovative things, such as English as a second language classes in lunch hours and things like that. So there's lots of opportunities to just think about how you put that equity lens on your recruitment, hiring, and retention practices throughout the employee life cycle.
Thank you. So an example of a union middle job recruitment and hiring, we need to now front load all of these circumstances and protocols and announcements and screening widely to the, I'm not saying I'm just in favor, I'm just trying to understand this. We're changing our whole scope of how we're going to be recruiting and hiring and all the front loading to make sure we've covered off all the bases broadly so that the right qualified applicants now have a chance to be considered for the position. And then at the end, we're hiring based on merit. Is that sort of what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I would say it's not meant to dramatically shift how you're doing your hiring practice. It's meant to think through what are some of the barriers that maybe exist that you haven't worked through? What are some of the opportunities to use your word, broadcast to groups that maybe haven't had the opportunity to be part of the City of Cranbrook employment previously? And also to think about what are some of the requirements we're asking for with roles. And we've, as a society, moved very heavily towards education and not necessarily looked at skills in some of the same ways in some instances. So it's thinking about what's required for the job and how do we ensure that a diverse pool of candidates has an opportunity to apply for those roles.
Thank you. And this will be captured in our job descriptions?
Job descriptions, postings, and thinking about what are some of those steps you'll want to undertake as you go through that process.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. Thank you. In your second pillar, develop a community engagement strategy that explicitly identifies ways to encourage underserviced groups within the community. So can you give me some examples of how the City of Cranbrook does this with the broader community?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just flipping back. So a couple of things to think about is considering what I'm going to pick on events for a moment, since we just talked about Spirit of the Rockies as one event that the city supports, but thinking about what types of events you've supported and who is most benefits from those events, and just considering if that is meeting the needs of the current population of the city of Cranbrook. And as you go forward, we know that the population of Cranbrook is shifting and will continue to shift as we see demographics across Canada shift. So just thinking about who is part of your population and what are some of their needs. And so maybe we use the example of Muslim community, for example, who wouldn't traditionally celebrate something like Christmas, which we, I would say pretty heavily as communities across Canada focus on. And so thinking about what are maybe some of the cultural and religious celebrations that Muslim families would benefit from, and how do we also not celebrate Christmas, but how do we also celebrate some of those festivals and events that would support some of that shifting demographic.
Thank you. So, but the city's role, then, if I understand this right, is to actually police other agencies, organizations, other festivals, other events, DEI policies, and say, sorry, you're not following DEI as we see it, so the city cannot support you. I'm seeing what you're suggesting here is we're going to be a middle person here, overruling or evaluating other organizations' DEI processes. And if that's what we're talking about, I don't think we have skin in the game to be doing that.
Yeah,
Andy,
it's not.
Andy's got his hand up here too.
Okay, Andy, go ahead if you'd like.
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Papa through Mayor Price. The approach to that level of community connection and support is what we hope to achieve through partnering with Aratek. This is why we have the internal committee that's going to be looking at the city processes and in terms of how our employees and our processes are connecting within the corporation purview, how we connect with the community. But there is some amenities across the region that might require attention by grants coming from a regional committee applying for those improvements. They are certainly not going to be the singular responsibility for the city to take on. There's going to be a partnership between the Aratek and ourselves. What we're hoping to achieve here is really having our way of connecting with our community as a municipality, as a city, and how would that going to look like? So.
Thank you. I still have some reservations on this, that we might be meddling in other organizations' business, but thank you.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'm glad we had the foresight to use the acronym DEI and not DIE. That was smart thinking. And Daba, my question for you, since starting working on the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, what's been some of the takeaways for you personally and for your department? What have you been implementing so far?
Thank you, Councillor Pibert, for that through Mayor Price. The clear learnings for us as an HR team is that we have some work to do in the recruitment practices. We certainly have to do a lot of work in terms of positioning the city of Cranbrook as an inclusive employer. We respect the fact that Mayor and Council, the strategic plan does show that there's inclusiveness as a corporate value. So we'll be really working hard to make sure that our recruitment practices do align with the wise standards in DEI. There's, especially when we look at societies developing to have even the basic forms, recruitment forms, indicating different people's identification. We are not there yet, but we are committing to do that work and make sure that the city is adopting best practices.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything further? Well, thank you, Andrea, Amanda, and Andy, the three A's here. Much appreciated. Great presentation. It gives the council a lot to think about here. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up is from Fire and Emergency Service and Building and Bylaw Services departments regarding the Knights Hall demolition. We have Scott and Paul to review the update for council here tonight. Paul and Scott.
Good evening, Mayor.
And Tony. Or is Tony part of that too, or is he the next one? I see Tony there. Whatever. Okay.
He's just ready for you. Good evening, Council and Mayor Price. So just wanted to give an update on the status of the Knights Hall building. And so as a result of the fire on December 19th, Council was presented with a resolution that they voted to go forward with to declare the Knights Hall building a nuisance and to order its demolition by the 27th of December. Due to the inaction of the owner on the 27th, the city in an expedited fashion sourced a prime contractor to take that project on. And then by December 29th, we had a very ambitious but safe plan to demolish the building at the same time as performing a fire investigation and a search of the occupancy. And so I'm very happy to report that the search of the occupancy came up with nobody found in the building at the time of the fire, which is very, very good news. The fire investigation is not complete, but we're most of the way through it, and the demolition at this time is completed, and the site is being left in a safe fashion for the public. Just as a note that the fire investigation is not done, but we are able to say that the fire was most likely caused by human activity. We are unable to determine if it was intentional or accidental at this time. The structure no longer poses a risk of collapse to the public, which is our primary goal in the demolition of the building, but it is still sitting on the site. And as we go forward, the process of dealing with that site is going to transition from the fire department over to the building and bylaw department. And you should be hearing from them, if I'm correct, in the coming weeks. I do want to sincerely thank the dedicated team that I had working for me. We had quite a few departments working alongside us. The building and bylaw department, public works was a lot of support during the process of trying to get this important work done. Additionally, the contractors that stepped up to help us over the holiday season were very, very busy trying to get things done and in a safe fashion. So I do want to thank Bravo Restorations, Hardy Construction, Revolution Earthworks, Bolin Engineering, Mountain Eagle Security. And additionally, our partners in the RCMP, their forensic team helped us with the drone to do the search of the building for the entire time that we were doing the demolition. And the fire commissioner's office did send somebody from Victoria to help with the fire investigation as well. So without those efforts, we wouldn't have been able to do this as well and as quickly as it got done. And like I said, we're very happy to find nobody in the building at the time. So I don't know if Paul wants to add anything to that. I did speak on his behalf. But so,
Councilor Stetsky.
Thank you. Great work. Done very quickly. So what's next with the piles that are sitting there?
So, Your Worship, through to Councilor Stetsky, we've been in touch with our legal team, and we're now at this point just discussing our options to deal with the demolition debris and the costs involved.
Councilor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So at this time, the sidewalk, the roads, any surrounding city property, it's all considered safe? Not the private land, but the surrounding area, sidewalk, roads?
That's correct. It is safe, yes. And I can speak to the safety of the public during the demolition. Is we had air quality testing going on from the start to the finish of the demolition, and the air quality readings adjacent to the building during the demolition were better than the readings adjacent to the road, which was caused by road dust. So it was carried out in a very safe fashion and monitored the entire time.
I'd just like to commend all the participants that were involved in this. It was it was a big undertaking in certainly in process. I was quite impressed with the fire investigation, the RCMP, the forensic team. I don't believe you could have undertaken an investigation to that scale, certainly without the use of the drone. And that's again, new technology, you know, that certainly saved us a week of time if you had to do it the old-fashioned way. All the other contractors were involved. Thank you very much. Again, we're looking for the next steps. I hope the public realizes, you know, this has been going on. The city has been involved, you know, with this owner and this property. We've had it under orders, you know, for mitigation purpose. But, you know, when you get into the legal area, it takes time, and the city's hands are tied sometimes what we can do. And, you know, so I appreciate, you know, the angst that some of the people in the community have been going through the last number of years, but our hands were tired. We were doing everything we could do, you know, in accordance with the law and regulations that are out there. Saying that, this is a good first step. So we've got the demolition, the salvage will be next. And again, it's all part of process. So be patient. One thing about it, the process is in action now. So we hope to see some results here on coming. And please realize that when you're dealing with process, whether it's just regulatory or legal, and especially if both are involved, it's a matter of time. So be a little bit patient. Council is certainly looking for the same outcome as the public on this, for sure. So thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Final update tonight is from Public Works Department regarding an update on the Memorial Arena. Tony, please provide us an update on that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the assembly of the scaffolding being used to hold up the structure of the arena roof nears completion, the project will be moving forward to the next phase of cutting the beams and installing the new foundations. Despite the scaffolding challenges, the project remains on track for completion early spring. Project budget is still under the allocated amount and is currently at $2,980,000, which includes a 20% contingency. The date of the official startup of the ice plant is still not confirmed, but staff and contractors are determined to have the ice surface at the Kingsman Arena as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Tony. Council? No, thanks, Tony. And thanks everybody involved. Again, you know, this project, you know, it's one of those things that come right out of the blue. We weren't prepared for it. Certainly, you know, some of the recommendations that staff brought to council to move forward on it immediately has been acted on. And certainly, I think the contractors and the public in Cranbrook have been extremely supportive on this and moved it along really well. So thank you very much. And thank you, Tony. Last item on the agenda tonight is correspondence from Bindi Sawchuk, Assistant Deputy Minister, Ministry of Housing, regarding the housing capacity funding notification. The letter is to be received for information tonight. And that brings us to Mayor and Councilors' reports and inquiries. Let's start with Councillor Popoff on the short end tonight. No, nothing there. Councillor Bissett, Councillor Peabody, Councillor Stetsky.
I just want to wish everybody a healthy, happy 2000 and what year are we going into? 24.
Good stuff. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to quickly touch on something. I don't think we touched on this before Christmas, so some folks may already be aware of this. The Globe and Mail did a list that they published in November of the 100 most livable cities in Canada, and Cranbrook is on that list, number 38 out of 100. So I would just encourage folks to have a look at that. It might be one of those articles that is behind a paywall. So our Cranbrook Public Library might be able to help people source that article, but definitely something to be proud of. Cranbrook, number 38 on Canada's most livable cities.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ray. And I have nothing tonight. So with that, we're at the end of tonight's meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett. Ooh, all in favor?